Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Bowling with the Fef, a platform for you to share your unique bowling story live on our YouTube channel. And we're coming at you on a night that the conversation, unfortunately, isn't really much about bowling in the greater community around here, but it's actually about our weather. And there are a lot of places around the Midwest that are kind of going to be impacted, if they haven't been already, by a storm that's coming through, which is kind of odd timing, it being December and all. But I know we've got some rough weather at least predicted and on the way. Hopefully, if there is severe weather where you are, that you're able to stay safe and stay inside, shelter up when you have to, all that good stuff. Be weather aware, and best of luck to everybody who's in the path of what's really been described as an unprecedented storm for this time of year. Today is also the midst of PBA award season. So we're starting to find out who the winners are of the 2021 PBA awards. Yesterday, we found out that the Steve Nagy Sportsmanship Award is going to Jake Peters. And earlier today, the PBA announced the 2021 Harry Golden PBA Rookie of the Year is Matt Russo. So congratulations to those two. The PBA says they are going to announce the Player of the Year coming up this Friday, the Chris Schinkel PBA Player of the Year. And we'll certainly be looking forward to hearing who the Player of the Year is for 2021. Of course, Bowling with the Fef is brought to you by Chip Magnet Salsa, as always. Chip Magnet Salsa, a local company, at least to me, here in the Chippewa Valley of Wisconsin. It's located in Eau Claire, which is about 60 or 70 miles due east of the Twin Cities of Minnesota. It's a family business. They make salsa, they make relish, they make sauces and other stuff. And I should mention that a guy that I was talking to named Joe Natoli told me that he went out, got some mango habanero from Chip Magnet, and really enjoyed it. So I gave it a shot as well. I kind of favored the wildly delicious, myself, but the mango habanero is really interesting. And I'm going to admit I'm on kind of a mango habanero kick. So, like I said, it's a local company, but it is distributed to 38 different states and Canada. If you are in North Carolina, we are in the Ingalls supermarkets as well as Food City. It will be in a supermarket near you, most likely. If it's not, you can go to chipmagnetsalsa.com to order. Chip Magnet Salsa, all kinds of varieties. If you like mild, if you like hot, if you like somewhere in between, they've got a variety for you. A great product that I highly recommend. Chip Magnet Salsa, raise your snack standards. So tonight we head out to New York, where our guest is Nolan Hughes, who is studying from Syracuse, New York, and joining us from a great-looking studio there in Syracuse. How you doing tonight, Nolan?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. This is great to talk to you. Like I said, studying at Syracuse. Tell us what you're studying there and how long it's going to take before you have a diploma in your hands.
Gotcha. So I'm studying sports journalism, and the degree is in magazine, news, and digital journalism, and it's from the Newhouse School of Public Communications at Syracuse University. So I'm getting more of the writing journalism side, but it's a focus in sports journalism. And okay. Some of the alumni that have come out of this program are top of the line: Matthew Berry, Nick Wright, Bob Costas, Mike Tirico. If there's a big name out there, there's a good chance they came from here.
Yeah. Wow, that's very impressive. This is a master's program for you. And sports, you said, is not only what you study, but kind of a hobby. It's, it kind of, I don't want to say it runs your life, but it's a pretty big part of your life. Mm-hmm. Is your middle name Ryan?
That would be it.
You got to tell me how that came to be, because that's awesome. Nolan Ryan, of course, the superstar pitcher from Mets, Angels, Astros, Rangers, all the strikeouts. That's awesome to have to have that name.
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't think it was intentional by my parents. I think they just liked the name Nolan and liked the name Ryan. And initially, my dad did want to name me after Earl Anthony, but that would have been growing up in the 21st century with the name Earl would have been a disaster. So I'm kind of glad that, with all due respect to Earl, that would have been a disaster at this point. So
Yeah.
Nolan Ryan just kind of came to be, and my first love in sports was actually baseball.
Okay.
And if we hadn't moved from Buffalo, I probably would have stuck with baseball for a lot longer.
Yeah, it's funny to me that a lot of the bowlers that you hear about, Earl Anthony, as you mentioned, Tommy Jones, AJ Johnson, as he said on this program, kind of have that baseball background and yet somehow gravitated to bowling. Do you find that there are skills, maybe, in the inner workings of baseball technique or bowling technique that kind of intersect?
I don't know about physical traits. I mean, although just being more of an athlete definitely helps in bowling. There's definitely some good bowlers that could be great if they were a little bit more athletic. I think the biggest thing for me is just being able to interact as a teammate and understanding team chemistry and the give and take of being on a team. When I got to college, having that background really, really helped.
Yeah. Of course, none of us get to college competitions right away. We got to start somewhere. So why don't you start from the beginning? Tell me about how it all started for you in the sport of bowling.
Gotcha. So my family, we initially grew up in Cheektowaga, New York. That's where Simonelli and Liz Johnson are from. I lived in the same neighborhood as Simonelli. I did not know this at the time, but we lived in the same neighborhood. And my dad had always been a big bowler. I was born at about 3:00 in the afternoon, and he went to his Thursday night league that night at 6:30 p.m. So bowling was always big, but like I said, I played baseball when I was young. And then my little sister, she's 1 year younger than me. She goes to Stephen F. Austin. My dad got her to go out bowling one time, and I didn't want to do it. I was just that type of kid. You tell me to do something, I'm not doing it. And then she got her own bowling ball one year, and I was like, no, I want my own bowling ball. So then I started bowling, and then we moved down to North Carolina in 2008. And we were deciding between which bowling center to go to. And one of them was called Buffalo Lanes. And we were like, well, that makes our choice easy. So that's where we went.
That's awesome. So I guess you started a little bit in Buffalo. You go to North Carolina. And, this kind of gets me right in the feels because I kind of had a similar path where I started in the Milwaukee area, moved to the Twin Cities, and I knew I wanted to do it. I just didn't know anybody in the junior program because I knew nobody in Minneapolis. So tell me about that, kind of getting to know the program, getting to know the people in it when you're kind of a complete stranger to start.
Yeah, and I was always a shy kid. So the first year or so was kind of tough. But I mean, the Buffalo Lanes program is, everyone knows that across the country. When I started, it was the largest youth bowling program in the country. And there was like Melissa McDaniel, the president of USBC. She runs our youth league and the whole center really. And so when I first started, I made a couple of friends, from Saturday morning league. And then as I got a little bit better, we had a junior gold program for the better kids. And then from there, it just kind of took off, and I started bowling some of the youth tours around in the area, met some even more players, even better players, and it just kind of took off.
Yeah. When you say it's the biggest junior program around, that can mean a lot of things. It can mean it's very well attended. It can mean there are tools that they set you up with that maybe other juniors don't have access to. Kind of elaborate on that a little bit. What's it like to be in that program?
So I think it was by volume. Buffalo Lanes North is a 42-lane center, and on Saturday mornings, all 42 lanes were filled with a couple of buffer pairs.
Wow.
We had bumpers on the high end and the best league on the low end, and literally all 42, aside from like 2 buffer pairs, were full.
Oh, wow.
So I think it's a volume thing.
Okay. Yeah. Was it at all intimidating when you started with all those kids?
I don't know if intimidating is the right word, but I started off, I was 9 years old or so. And there was a kid that was about my age who was way better than me. And so I always had someone to kind of chase. And even down on the high end where the best bowlers were the 18, 19, 20-year-olds, ironically, my sister's now engaged to one of those, my older sister. So that kind of was a little fortuitous, but it always gave me something to chase when I was young, 9, 10, 11. So that was the part that I appreciated the most.
Sure. How about coaches? Tell me about maybe a coach or two that helped set that foundation for you to grow in the sport.
Yeah. So Melissa McDaniel was my first coach. She got me from, just your kid off the street into like being able to compete at being able to qualify for junior gold. And then I befriended a lot of local bowlers that were very good. Kenny McFalls helped me out a lot. He's from around the Charlotte area. And I learned so much from Kenan and from all the other great bowlers across the Carolinas. So it started off with Mel and then branched off into learning from a bunch of other players. I worked with Ron Clifton a little bit. Back then, he's Kyle Troop's coach, or at least was Kyle Troop's coach for a while. And worked with him for a little bit. And really, until I got to college, those were my main people.
Yeah. You mentioned some of the tours around that area. I had Bryce Catahan on episode 50. He talked about how you two competed in your youth at the Tough Shots and, before you got to college. Tell me a little bit about the Tough Shots tour and how that helped, make you a better player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, first, obviously, my dad was one of my first coaches as well. That goes without saying.
Yeah.
The Tough Shots tours, it's this youth bowling tour in the Carolinas. They travel all over from Charlotte, Raleigh, Greensboro, down into South Carolina, the Myrtle Beach area a little bit. And the level of competition at these tournaments is unreal. I'm actually working on a story about this. Like, there's been about a dozen players from the Carolinas that have made Junior Team USA over the past half decade or so. Brianna Clemmer, Kenna McFalls, Madison Janak, Caroline Thyser. Like, there's so many. So like when you walk in day one and the bar's at the roof, and that really teaches you to step up your game like right off the bat.
Yeah. Is it one of those deals where you go to your first event and you think it's going to be one way, and then it's like, whoa, there's a lot of, competition here that I wasn't expecting? Or do you come in, kind of not knowing and you just assume?
I bowled one in the spring of whatever, I think 2014, trying to get a spot to junior gold. And that I barely even remember it. I did not get a spot at that tournament. That's all I remember.
Yeah.
But I bowled my first one, my first real one, the next fall. So it was, I think, November 2015. And I didn't really have any expectations. I didn't know what was going on. And then I made match play. And the first game of match play, I shot 300. And it was actually the second 300 in the tour's history. It had been going on for 14 years. Wow. And no one had shot 300 until that day. Cameron Strombeck shot 300 earlier in the day in qualifying. And then I shot one in match play and was like, I had no idea what was going on.
Wow.
But then the next game, we switched ends of the house, and Brian Halen beat me like 160 to 150. So it was crazy because my first tournament, I'm shooting 300, and I'm like, oh, like maybe I'm okay here. And then we just moved houses or moved sides of the house, and I didn't even know it was just hooking more. I just had to move left, but I was too dumb to know that. And so I lost.
Yeah. These days, you go to a tournament on a sport pattern or a challenge pattern or something like that, and there's a chance that you're going to kind of see the pattern, the topography beforehand. Mm-hmm. Was that the case when you were on these Tough Shots events, or did you just go in blind?
I believe they posted patterns back then. As junior gold switched to being unknown patterns, I believe they switched as well.
Okay.
But I believe at the time we did know what the patterns were.
Yeah. I think about, my time in juniors and other folks who, kind of came up in maybe the 90s or before, or even to the 2000s, and not having a chance to bowl on a challenge pattern, on a Tough Shots event like that. You just kind of went and probably bowled on a modified house shot. But tell me about, kind of the mental side of that. What you go in thinking about and how you're able to, kind of mentally get through an event like that where you're not going to have half the lane to hit. You're really going to have to make some good shots.
Yeah, I think early on I really struggled with that because I was just so competitive. I wanted to win every time I did anything. If it was just walking to the car, I had to be the first one to the car. So learning to adjust to that was, no one ever I never really figured out how to do it until I haven't really figured it out, if I'm being honest. But I, I we had a lot of opportunities at Buffalo Lanes to practice on sport patterns. We had a sport league on Monday or Tuesday nights, and we'd have another day or two of the week where Mel would put out a pattern for us. So we had way more access than I think a lot of people had. So I was really fortunate for that. But as far as learning to adjust to your score going down, it was so hard for me. I really struggled with just not being able to like be my best at all times, because that's the nature of the game. And I think I don't know what I could have done to have been better at it, but I think the biggest thing is just not knowing you can't do your best and just learning the difference between grinding and my friend Jalen says pushing, which is, trying, you have a good look, you can shoot that 250 game. Learning the difference between those two things, I think, would have helped me out a lot when I was younger.
Sure. Yeah. But hindsight's always 20/20 for us all.
Absolutely.
So, you kind of deal with that as you grow. I messaged Brett Lloyd, who said that you were always one of the hardest working people in the program, and that he looked up to you for that. And he was about 14 when he got into the youth program. So you were about 16. He said he practiced almost every day after school, and a lot of the times he would see you there too, and that you were always a great competitor and has an excellent mind for bowling. Tell me about the work ethic part of that. I mean, he said he always saw you there. Was that just something that just came to you? You were passionate about the sport and you were going to be there no matter what? Or did you have to convince yourself, hey, I need to, to practice more if I'm going to keep up with the Joneses?
I was definitely more of the latter there. I always wanted to practice. It wasn't, I just had to be at the lanes. I wasn't like I said, I was more of a shy kid. So like the going out and socializing part wasn't really it for me. So just going to the bowling alley for a couple hours, anytime one of my parents could drive me or my little sister, like that's just what we were going to do. So we were there a lot. Yeah. And I never had much of an issue with practicing. Wasn't really work to me. And part of that was because there's a difference between like bowling and practicing, and I probably didn't know the difference of that when I was 14, but I was always at the lanes. It felt like I was there all the time.
Yeah. It's cool that you had a sister that was kind of growing in the game, consecutive to your growth in the game, or concurrent, I should say, to your growth in the game. We heard about that on this program with Deandra Asbeatty and her sister, and the sister got better, so she wanted to match it. Was there a way that you two were kind of pushing each other to be better through these teenage years?
Yeah, I think we were always competitive, but it was kind of in bowling, it was kind of unspoken, where I'm the older brother. I can't lose to my little sister, and she's the little sister, so she's always trying to beat the older brother. But we weren't like talking trash to each other or anything like that. I think it was just having someone there to like, hey, can you take a video for me? Hey, what am I doing at the line with my release? And just having that extra set of eyes at all times was probably something I took for granted at the time, honestly.
Yeah. You mentioned your folks. You said your dad was a bowler, even before you were around. A lot of us growing up in junior programs rely on our folks for the access, for that kind of stuff. How big a supporter was your dad and mom when you talk about, getting to the center and getting the equipment and things like that?
Yeah, they were obviously crucial. I couldn't have done it without them. They both me and my little sister, we didn't get our licenses till we were like 18, so they were our chauffeurs, and that's obviously the first step. You can't bowl unless you're at the bowling alley. Yeah. But my dad is always my biggest fan. I think he wants me to succeed more than I do myself, and so it was the coolest part of whenever I was at a tournament is whenever it was like a big shot or whatever, he would take a video of it, and all you can hear in the background is like, "Come on, Nolan, one time." Couldn't even hear anything else. So I always thought that was cool. Yeah. And just having someone in the back where you could be like, hey, can you go get me some water? Can you go get me some food? Like that's stuff that you take for granted when you're 15, but it's invaluable.
Yeah, for sure. When it came time to start searching for a place to go to college, you described on your website how you were a little lost And then you said one day you were scrolling through Instagram and you saw this big nosed doofus throwing a strike and then flipping a water bottle on the lane. So tell me, who was the doofus, and how did that all factor into your decision?
That is Hunter Kempton. We were that. Oh my God, I'm so glad you found that quote. So my senior year of high school, I was always one of the smarter kids. I had great grades, but like college wasn't really for me at the time. I didn't feel like, and college bowling wasn't really a thing in our area. No one talked about it. There's no real schools down there. So it didn't really even cross my mind. And then I see Hunter on the like Explore tab doing that was when the water bottle flip was big.
Oh, sure.
So he struck, did a water bottle flip, and I was like, who is this dude? And I clicked on his page, and I saw he was pretty good. Like he finished second at Teen Masters later that year, and I saw he had signed to LMU, and I'm like, LMU, like this kid's good. Why isn't he going to Weber or Wichita or whatever? And then I looked into the LMU program, and I saw they're brand new at the time. It was their first year. Joe Slawinski was their head coach, who was one of the smartest people in the bowling world, probably the smartest. And I was like, wait, what? And so I emailed Joe. That was mid-December of my senior year. And we set up a visit 2-3 weeks later. And I committed like 2 days after my visit. It all happened really, really fast. In December of my senior year, I had no idea. And by mid-January, I was already signed to a school.
Cool how that stuff works out, just in time, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, college bowling, of course, a lot different than juniors. Tell me about the transition for you, not only moving away from home, moving to Tennessee, but also, now you're in a team atmosphere and not just competing for yourself.
Yeah, it was definitely tough my first semester because my teammates were I hadn't been in an environment like this before where they're not like some of my teammates, Brandon St. Ange, Mason Yamada, Corey O'Neill, Clay Hartman. They were great teammates, but I wasn't used to their personalities. They're very abrasive. And, if you throw a bad shot, you're going to hear you suck immediately. And I did not know how to deal with that whatsoever. And so you had to build up a thicker skin real quick. And getting used to that took me a little bit of time. But once I got used to that, then it was off and running. We were the best of friends. Like there's a lot of people say they're a family, but we really were.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about, kind of working your way toward the competition at that school. I mean, was there a lot of practice? Did you bowl in like a specified league or something like that to get ready for those tournaments?
So our practices were very, very structured. Joe would send us a itinerary for every day. Warm-ups were from 2:45 to 3 in the afternoon. We had a whole setup. I honestly probably still have it memorized. And then we would, from 3 o'clock to whatever time, 3:30, we'd be doing drills. From 3:30 to 4, we'd be doing something. And he had it broken down minute by minute from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock of what we would be doing that day. And we bowled at Hillcrest Lanes. It's a nice little 20-lane center in Tennessee. And we worked on everything. Some days it was lane play, so he put out 10 different patterns across 10 lanes, and we would just rotate through them all, having to figure out the pattern. Some days were spares, obviously. Some days we would do like target practice where we'd have to strike 5 times from the first arrow, the second arrow, the third arrow, all the way across between every arrow. And we did all kinds of drills, all kinds of physical game work. Joe pushed us to our limits, and we were all better off for it.
Yeah. Tell me what you saw in yourself. I mean, obviously, these are things that you're not doing individually. I'm going out on a limb here and saying these are things that you're not doing individually in North Carolina. After you start doing these drills and, learning more about lane play, what changes do you see in your game, both physically and mentally?
I think mentally was the biggest stuff. We had a t-shirt that said LMU College Bowling Science, and that's really what it was. He taught us so much about, we had a lane chart with all the straight lines from slide, arrow, down lane, literally every board imaginable. He had the mathematical line for it. And no one else was thinking about, Weber thinks this way because he helped start Weber. Mm-hmm. But just thinking more in depth, like you're not just rolling ball down the lane. It's what are you doing? Where are you sliding? How much axis are you putting on the ball, both rotation, tilt, all of that, just thinking through all that and having a reason for why you're doing all of that was the biggest thing that Joe taught us. And then him opening us up to the physical game. I'm blanking on the word, but the biomechanics of bowling and just opening our eyes to some of those things. And like his big thing is, dropping your shoulder and kind of opening up a little bit, which it sounds crazy, but then you look at every pro on the tour and they all drop their shoulder and they all open up. So like that was probably the biggest thing, was just seeing the subtle things that the pros do well that we could replicate and fitting it to your own game.
Yeah. So, you get all that training, you have the tools for success, and your team's made some nice runs at the sectional level. But ultimately, you fall short of ITCs. Tell me about what happened, and did you get past the disappointment of being so close to that tournament?
Yeah, our luck at ITCs or ISCs was never great. Our freshman year, we were second after day one and ended up missing cut by 50 pins. Wisconsin Whitewater made a huge run and jumped. They went from like 8th to 3rd or something. SCAD beat us out by a couple of sticks. And that was tough. That broke us for, I don't think any of us left our rooms for about a week or two. That one was really, really tough. And that was just, we're all freshmen and sophomores. We were just young, didn't know how to handle the moment. And I don't even know if it was as much of like choking under the pressure. We just didn't we kind of coasted. Instead, when we had our chance to kind of put teams away, we didn't put our foot on the gas. And then our sophomore year, we go to Jersey, and actually I had my real chance here was singles. I was leading from game 1 through game 2 through game 3 through game 4. After game 5, I was in 3rd, and then I got jumped by 5 people last game, and I fell to 8th. And I had a chance to throw all 3 strikes in the 10th frame to tie for the last spot. But honestly, like I get the first one, and then I hear a few lanes down, Tom Hankey picks up a huge split to make it. And I swear, this is what I thought. I thought, well, he just took my spot. I'm done. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't give it all my all on the next shot, and I left a 3-6-10 or something. And if I had struck there, I would have just needed one more strike to make it. And that kind of speaks to like, I was at this level, but I never really thought like I belonged at the top of that level. Like, I don't think I ever really thought I could have, like, when I was leading, I was like, what is this? This doesn't make any sense. And then honestly, messing up that really messed me up. And we get into the weekend for the team portion, and we were all just out of whack. I don't know what it was, but like, because I had the same look that I had in singles when I had the best look in the building, and I bowled like garbage. That was a real mental, like, if I try not to think about it honestly, because it's a real, like, one of the worst weekends of bowling that I've had in probably ever, just because of the opportunity that I had and wasting it. And there's a lot of lessons to take away from that, which is, one is A, I definitely did belong, and B, just never taking your foot off the gas, which is a lesson I probably should have learned from the year before. But it was different on the individual level, I think, for me.
Sure. It's one of those things. I mean, you kind of have to be ready to kill when you get to competition. And we all kind of learn that at a different age. And I guess, what I've had coaches tell me in the past is, well, you got to learn something from it. You got to learn something from it. Could you feel yourself kind of learning lessons as you had those disappointments along the way?
Yeah, that one, I told myself the lesson in the middle of the singles block, but I didn't listen to myself, where I was leading by like a lot after 2 games. I went 250 something. And some competitor came up to me, and you're just like, oh, what are you at? I'm like, oh, 101 over. He's like, what? Oh, you're in already. And I was like, okay, I'm in already. And then just kind of started coasting. And I even said something to my dad, and my dad was like, you think that's the right mindset to have right now? And I was like, probably not. But then I went out and did it anyway. So like that was definitely a lesson. Like, I knew it at the time, but I didn't actually act on it.
Yeah, sure. So, I'm going to work my way around the time last year when you and the program parted ways. You've got a pretty lengthy Twitter thread on it. So if people
please check that out, folks.
If people are interested in seeing, your story behind that, it's there. I did contact Coach for comment. She said she was going to get back to me, but never did. So
I'll get back to you.
So I don't want to, kind of, go all one-sided when there's multiple sides here. But when you end your college competition, whatever the circumstances, it's kind of tough to go from that structure and then continue on in a growth mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, it goes back to even my junior year where we were in Dallas for sectionals when everything with COVID went crazy and shut down. So we were ready to go make a run. We thought we were probably the best team in the country at that point, and then it gets taken from us. And then all the crazy stuff happens, and then once again it gets cut out from under me. And I adjusting after that was tough. I did not know what to do. It was a little bit of a weird situation because I got into Syracuse on a Tuesday, and being the level of prestige of this program here, that was a real okay, I'm onto something here. And then the next day was when she kicked me off the team, so it was a real and adjusting off of that. I had something to look forward to in the summer, so I kind of tried to skip ahead. But I even was realizing this over the last few weeks. I wasn't really ready to move on from that point. I was in this mindset of I'm here to compete for a title, and then 2 years in a row it just gets taken.
Yeah. So you go to Syracuse, and you start in this program to build up your journalism background. Tell me about how that's been going, and where does it take you?
So I first got the idea to start being a part of journalism, whatever that means. I had always been a huge sports nerd. I would watch SportsCenter reruns for hours on end. And my sophomore year, the Tyler Trent story, the ESPN feature. If you haven't seen the YouTube videos on this, it's one of the most inspirational videos you'll ever see. It really struck me because Tyler was this Purdue super fan, and he was just like me, smart, skinny nerd who just loved sports. And all he wanted to do was go work in sports media someday. And then he's diagnosed with cancer when he's 15. He's fighting it on and on and on. And then they're facing Ohio State. Purdue stinks. They're completely unranked. And he says all along, Purdue's going to win this game. They're going to beat the number 2 Ohio State Buckeyes. They're going to win. And he's saying this literally from his hospice bed. And then he makes it to the game, and Purdue goes out and stomps Ohio State. Wow. And it was just this incredible moment. And I just bought in. I was all in on him. And then he passed away a few months later. And it really hit me when he passed away. It hit me like that could have been me. We were the same age. And that's when I was like, all right, I need to get going on this. I can't just wait around for life to come happen. I got to make it happen. So that's when I started my website, can'tlosehughes.com, literally that week. And then it just took off from there. I realized I had a talent for writing, kind of ran with it. And grad school was never really an option for me. I never really wanted to go to school again. I told myself I was only going in if I could go to one of the 2 big programs with Syracuse or Northwestern. And I got into both and chose Syracuse. And then I started in Syracuse this summer, and we're going up another level.
Yeah. Wow. So you mentioned the website. You do writing there, you do a podcast, and you also have had some experience writing for both the PBA website and Bowler's Journal. How did that happen for you?
Yeah. So when I got to Syracuse, over the summer, we had it was like a 6-week boot camp so that we could get a semester's worth of classes within 6 weeks. And one of my assignments for my sports class, Professor Stomsky here is a legend, and one of her assignments is to meet with an industry professional, someone that you idolize, you want to be with, you want to work with, someone like that. And so I reached out to a whole bunch of people. I talked to Mike Flanagan. I talked to Kofi from Secret Base. I talked to Tom Clark, and he's from Syracuse, so we hit it off immediately. And I was just like, he had read one or two of my articles that I wrote for KLCS.com, and he was like, if you ever want to write something for the PBA, let us know. And I was like, oh yes, please. And then Matt Russo won his first title, and our GA at the time at LMU was Jalen Scott Jones, and they bowled together at Weber for years. And he had always told me these stories about Matt just being just this legend at Weber practices. And so I was like, hey, he just won a title. I'd like to write a story about him. And they were like, go for it. And so I was able to interview him, and now he's the Rookie of the Year, as we learned a few hours ago. So that was a pretty crazy coincidence.
Yeah, for sure. Tell me about a little more about that. I mean, so you're right about the guy. This summer, he wins his first title, and now he's Rookie of the Year. That's got to hold some special significance given your history now.
Yeah, I even told him, I was like, it's pretty cool that you're going to be my first interview here. And then I actually did a follow-up interview with him for Bowler's Journal for next year. None of my Bowler's Journal work has come out yet, so it'll all come out in 2022 at some point. And it's just a lot of it is just talking with some of the editors, and just you're constantly pitching stories. It seems like every time you're in a conversation, you're pitching a story, you're selling something, and it just kind of went from there. I was talking to Matt, and then Darren Tang won his first title either the next week or the week after, and they were like, hey, he just won his first title, can you do a similar piece for him? So I got to talk with Darren for a little bit, and it just kind of went from there.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I read the one on Darren Tang, which I thought was really good. It was again following that breakthrough title at the PBA Bowlstore.com Classic in Ohio, and it mentioned that you interviewed him over Zoom. So, kind of take us back to that interview. What was it like? Were you nervous? How was he over the webcam?
Oh, he was great. He does his vlogs and stuff, so he was very used to it. It was cool though. I don't know if I was nervous. I think at first when it first pops up, Darren Tang has entered the channel, it was like, oh, that's a little. But for whatever reason, growing up as a huge sports nerd, and seeing LeBron and Steph and Mahomes and all these guys, they seem like they're from another planet, right? But they're just guys. They're just normal people, and I've always felt that way about bowlers. They're just, and bowling's a little bit of a different sport in that aspect, where anybody could get lucky one game and beat anybody. So the human side of it is a little easier to appreciate, I think, in a sport like bowling. And so, yeah, it was a great interview. He was super insightful. I think a lot of the pros are, and just talking with him and learning some of the coolest part about interviewing him and Matt is they're both very cerebral players. They think through a lot of what they do. And so it was as much a mental game clinic for me as it was for an interview for a story. I learned so much from both of them.
Yeah. And you mentioned, that they're cerebral players, but I love that they're down to earth too. I don't know if you saw the video of, I think it was Darren bowling off the wrong foot and getting the extra rotation on it. That's cool to me because, like you said, it makes it feel like we're all kind of in the same club, even if we don't know each other yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, bowling has a lot of unique aspects to it that a lot of other sports don't.
Yeah. You have, like I said, you've got the podcast, you've got your website. Today you posted on Facebook that you have a mini doc that's going to be coming out. Tell us about that. What should we look for in that?
Yeah, so one of my classes here, it's a multimedia class where we learn how to do podcasting and video production and that type of stuff. And so our assignment was to kind of find a niche brand or a niche audience and kind of make a video for that. And so obviously the fortunate part for me at this school is pretty much everything bowling related is niche. So I can kind of use my actual passions and what I want to do in the future for classwork. So it started off as a class project, and I wanted to explore how college bowlers, at least on the men's side where they're not affiliated with the NCAA, how they can bowl and make money. And they've always been able to do this before NIL rules came about. And it's something that I think when us in the bowling industry kind of take for granted because we've always been able to do it. And then when I would talk to some of my classmates that are, college football fans or college basketball fans, and they're like, wait, you can bowl for money? Like, what? And I was like, yeah, so I didn't appreciate this cool opportunity. So I wanted to explore that. And so I met up with the big nose doofus Hunter Kempton, and his best friend Andrew Hall, who bowls at St. John's. He's got his PBA card though because they don't have a team, and Katie Robb, who is last year's ISC national champion. And so I just kind of explored how on the men's side they can bowl for cash, while on the NCAA bowlers have to take it either in scholarship or they can only take up to their expenses. So that's kind of what the video takes you kind of through a weekend through that.
Yeah. No, it's a great tease, and I'm looking forward to, to seeing the finished product. Brett told me to see you progress through bowling and pursue your passion of writing has been really special, that you're a gifted person and the perfect person for bowling media. Is that what you see yourself doing a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road?
This is a great question because I don't try to think too far ahead because everything changes in this world so fast. And so I don't set myself up with in 10 years, I want to be at this desk, because there's two things there is then you're closing yourself off to a whole number of options. And B, who knows if that desk is going to be there in 10 years. So what's the point of chasing something that might not be there? So I don't know what I want to do, if I'm being honest. I just kind of take things as they go. And I think the one main goal I have is to kind of raise the level of respect for bowling. And I think over the last few years, between what Jason Belmonte has done and what Kelly Kulik did, back in 2010 when she won the TOC, is bowlers have done some things in sports that are unparalleled, and no one gives them the credit for it. And so I'm not looking to put bowling on every episode of SportsCenter, but just to have these athletes and their accomplishments be known outside of the bowling community, I think is something that's important to do.
Sure. So like you said, they never get the credit for it. Tell me, what would it look like if they did get the credit for it? Would it be them being on SportsCenter every night? Would it look somewhat different? How would it look to you?
This is something I've been thinking about a lot. I don't know what it would look like, but I think the main thing for me is what Belmo has done on an individual level is on par with Tiger Woods and Serena Williams and there's these all-time great individual athletes. And the first story I wrote for can'tloseuse.com that was bowling related was about Belmo and the records he was chasing. And basically the thesis of this article was, don't compare him to Earl Anthony and to Pete Weber, compare him to Tiger. Don't compare him to Mark Roth, compare him to Steph Curry. Because the way he's not only dominated the other athletes in the sport, he has 13 majors. You would have to add like the next 6 just to add up to what he's done over the last decade. It's unbelievable. And on top of revolutionizing the sport, like how many two-handed bowlers were there 15 years ago, and now how many others today? And then, so it's fitting that Steph broke the 3-point record last night, because the parallels in bowling's two-handed and Steph Curry's 3-point shooting, and what they did to their sports, is very similar to me. And I think just having their names be in the conversation, when people talk about some of the greatest female athletes of all time and some of the greatest accomplishments, Kelly Kulik's tournament champions title needs to be on that list. It just needs to be. And I think just having their names in the conversation would, to me, signal that I've done what I've set out to do.
Yeah. During the show with Bryce, he said, you guys call each other at the most random times of day. You're like, hey, I have an idea. What do you think about this? Tell me your perspective on having, another content creator out there with, the access and all that to be able to bounce ideas off of each other. How does that make you two better at what you do?
It's kind of cool. It kind of goes back to what I was saying about how me and my sister, it was like a silent competitive nature, but also we're helping each other grow. And so when he's asking me, he happened to call me like a day or two before that interview, and he was just talking me through about some video he was working on. And it's cool because you get to bounce these ideas off each other and think about things that, so you don't get pigeonholed in this one set. You see what because at the end of the day, we are competitors. We definitely want each other to succeed, but, we're both trying to make it in the same sort of space. And so just kind of, when you both push each other, you both just get better and better and better. And so having that, and especially coming from the same area, it's just really cool because we're both, you know, on our way, and we're both gonna make it wherever we want to go. So just being able to kind of come from the same spot is really cool.
Yeah. Brag on your sister a little bit. You know, she's like you said at Stephen F. Austin. She's in the college game. You know, what should people know about her and what she's both done and able to do in bowling?
Yeah, she's probably the more talented between us. She's just on the quieter side. She started at Maryland Eastern Shore. Now she's at Stephen F. Austin, and she can do whatever she sets her mind out to do. We call her grandma because a lot of her passions are, she's like most people, you know, they'll go watch Netflix or they'll go do whatever. I don't know what people do these days. But she crochets. That's her main thing. And she's working on some paintings for me of like all the different places I've been. So she's super artistic. She's designed jerseys for, I think, a couple of national teams, and she's done a few for 12 bagger. And she designs personal jerseys for people on request. And she does all kinds of just cool stuff. She's a computer science major. So I don't understand what she's doing, but I know it's really, really cool.
Yeah. I love what you wrote about when her team is behind her and she throws a strike and they yell, "I declare bankruptcy," because I'm a huge fan of The Office myself. Do you know how that all started?
Oh, she's the biggest fan of The Office. Last year, I got her some custom shoes with all these different quotes on it. She just loves The Office. It's honestly an obsession. Like, sometimes I worry about her because I'll just see her room. She's watching it again. I'm like, Isabel, you want to try anything new? She's like, nope.
You find what you like. Sometimes you just like what you like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how about your bowling? Tell me how much you're bowling these days and what you see for yourself as far as competition in the future.
Yeah, at Syracuse, I do not bowl very often. I wish I had the opportunity to bowl more often, but my classes are in the evenings, and the closest center here doesn't open until the evenings, so I'm kind of out of luck, and it's also an AMF center, so it's expensive. So I sub in a league on Friday nights when I can. I've only bowled like half the week, so because I'm traveling or working on classwork or something. So I have not been able to bowl too much. I'm planning to step that up in the second half in the spring. I can bowl ISCs one more time, and so I think that's the main goal for me. As I don't really, I guess I'll be one of those weekend warrior types. I don't really know. I just kind of, I'm figuring out what I want to do in that aspect. I don't think I want to be like, I'm never going to go back home and just join the Thursday night league and just be one of those people. I'm just not going to do that. But I think bowling some competitive tournaments here and there when my game's feeling up to it is something that I could see myself doing. But I think being there to cover the tournaments is a little more appealing to me at the moment. So I think that's what I'm focusing on right now.
Yeah. You know, you're talking to a guy who bowls the Thursday night league, and, you know, that's okay. But, you know, yeah, I see what you're saying. You know, you got to get into some tournaments now and then, and I'd like to do the same. But no, it's, you know, I applaud that. You know, you concentrate on your studies, get a good gig, and the bowling can come whenever. That's the great thing about it is that it's always there. Nolan, tell us about the website, can'tlosehughes.com. What are we going to find there besides the things we mentioned tonight?
Yeah, so first the name started, my cousin Kevin. He started it when he was in college. He pitched at the University of Buffalo for a little bit. And Can't Lose Hughes, that's his, and I stole it from him. But with permission, of course. And it started off as just a way for me to kind of write about whatever I was thinking about, just kind of really practice. I never planned on it being much of anything beyond like a resume, is so I can say, hey, I've been writing since 2019. And so it started off with a lot of just football and basketball stuff. And then that fall, when Belmo was going for the major titles record, that I started writing about bowling. I haven't done too much on there lately, to be honest. I've been focusing on classwork and pitching my story to the PBA and Bowler's Journal and stuff like that. But on there's I do weekly picks. I guess that's more on my Twitter now. But weekly NFL picks, they're terrible. Don't listen to them, but watch in amusement. There's some cool feature stories if you scroll back a bit. I think my first story I wrote about Belmo on there. where I think it's called The Legend of Jason Belmonte Transcends Bowling. I think that's one of my favorite pieces I've ever written. Because I think that's something I'm going to be referencing for my entire life. I think the other aspect that I write about on there that's cool and unique is about the Buffalo Bills. My family's all from Buffalo, and when we drafted Josh Allen, I was notoriously not happy. And
really?
so seeing his development and kind of his ascension has been really, really cool to see. And you can even, there's a bunch of articles where I wrote before last year, we need to move on from this guy. He's not good. And then he finished second in the MVP race. So I'm never been happier to be wrong. But I think there's some cool insights into like my family, my dad's family. They grew up in the late 60s, early 70s when OJ was out and going. And then they get to the 90s. My mom was at one of the Super Bowls and we lost 4 straight.
Oh.
And there's a unique pain to being a Bills fan that I think a lot of it kind of shapes our personalities in ways that I hadn't considered until I started writing about it.
Yeah. Well, like I told you, I'm in Wisconsin, so naturally I'm a Packers guy. But when the Packers aren't playing, yeah, there it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo Bills. My dad cheered for him. I don't really know why, but yeah, I kind of stuck with them. And they haven't, like you said, the 4 losses, and then that stretch of time where they weren't so good, but. I stuck with them. So to see Josh Allen, succeed,
Mm-hmm.
I thought was pretty cool. But
yeah, it really surprised me. I can't believe he's good, but I've never been happier to be wrong.
Yeah, no doubt. Like I told you before we went on, we do a segment called Off the Sheet, and that's where I have you challenge somebody else to be on the show. And it doesn't have to be a PBA star, although it can be. Skill level is kind of irrelevant. It's someone who has a passion for the sport and a unique story to tell. So, Nolan Hughes, who would you like to challenge to be a future guest on Bowling with the Fef?
Yeah, so I already messaged her already. Her name's Jennifer Roback. She graduated from Long Island earlier this year. And I think I wanted to have her on the show because there's not too many. I don't think you've had too many women on the show. Mm-hmm. And so I think it would be cool to have some more on there. She's a reporter. So I have the journalism connection with her.
Oh, okay.
And she has this Instagram account, Women in Sports, and it's just shedding a light on and highlighting more women in bowling, but also in all aspects of sports. So I think she'd be a really great guest to have on.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you 100%. Love to have more women on this show, and I welcome that. Jennifer, if you're interested and are up for the challenge, let me know. You can find me on Facebook, DM me there, or you can email bowlingwiththefef@yahoo.com. So our next show is coming up on Sunday, December 19th, which is only in a few days here. But we have a guest coming on that you may have crossed paths with, or at least you've heard of, and that is Sean Maldonado. Did he ever kind of intersect with your endeavors in writing for the PBA this summer?
Yeah, interestingly enough, I haven't spoken with Sean, but when I was talking with Matt Russo, Matt's a two-hander, but he bowls with his thumb in the ball. Mm-hmm. And he told me this cool story about how everyone pretty much on tour was telling him, yo, you got to take your thumb out of the ball. You need to take your thumb out of the ball. And Maldonado was a two-hander with his thumb in the ball until this year. He took his thumb out and won 2 titles. So, but Matt was insistent on keeping his in, and then he won his title. So that was that's a cool parallel there.
Yeah, that is, and plenty of ways to skin a cat, but that is interesting that he starts with his thumb in and then takes it out and has the success. But again, Sunday, December 19th, 9:00 Central. We are looking forward, of course, to talking to 2-time tour champ Sean Maldonado. Nolan, it has been a pleasure getting to know you and your bowling story. Continued success at Syracuse and on the lanes whenever you decide that's your focus once again.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, check out all my social media platforms. I really think I'm doing stuff differently than a lot of people out there. So if you're interested in bowling and want to hear it talked about on a new level, come find me.
I would agree. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, you got a channel there. So yeah, easy to find. Go find them, everyone. Until Sunday, be just and fear not. We will see you coming up.